It's a global power struggle, and the White House is at the center of it all. Peace and prosperity, that's what is at stake as President Trump moves pieces on the global chessboard across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts Lou Bassanese, Dagan McDowell, Brian Bremberg, and with us for the hour, Bullseye American Ingenuity Fund Portfolio Manager Adam Johnson. A peace deal in Gaza. The president says it's possible as Prime Minister Netanyahu arrives at the White House today. But while the Middle East may inch closer to peace, China is demanding a major U.S. concession for a trade deal. The Wall Street Journal reports Xi Jinping is pushing for Washington to formally oppose Taiwan independence. This is a historic ask and one that Xi thinks he can win with a tough negotiation, that is. And it doesn't end there. The administration is also leaning on Moscow to end its war in Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance put it bluntly on Fox just yesterday.
The Russians have got to wake up and accept reality here. A lot of people are dying. They don't have a lot to show for it. How many more people are they willing to lose? How many more people are they willing to kill for very little, if any, gain in the military advantage on the ground there? I think the answer is hopefully not that much.
3 fronts, 1 White House, and a president betting that he can deliver peace without surrendering American power. A lot to get to here, but let's start first with the Israel aspect of this, because you do have the prime minister at the White House today talking to the president. And this is something the president promised, that all the hostages would come home. Dagan, I'll come to you first on foreign policy in general, and you can pick 2 of the other layers if they are of more interest to you. But do you think that he can get this done? And particularly, I ask that question because tensions have been rising, let's say, between us and Israel. That attack on Qatar was difficult for the president to kind of gloss over. So, you know, it's a bad situation abroad. He wants to bring it to an end, but so many factors involved.
Now is the time for this peace to happen. Tenuous peace it will be. But if it's going to take place, this is the moment. One thing to note, General Jack Keane was talking about this earlier on the Fox News channel. Hamas is desperate and more desperate than it's been in over 2 years. It now relies on teenage fighters. They're running with a 3rd or even 4th tier leadership because their leaders, one by one, have been taken out by Israel. But there's so much that never gets any coverage in terms of how the other nations around the Gaza Strip have aided and abetted Hamas just by not allowing Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip. For example, Egypt's foreign minister just a couple of days ago was on Bloomberg saying that Israel is trying to force Palestinians out of Gaza by making their lives miserable. And when asked if Egypt would allow Palestinian refugees into the Sinai. And I will note that, and this is someone I follow on X said this, Gaza is the only war in modern history where the civilian population has not been able to leave the war zone, but specifically because Egypt has kept them trapped in Gaza to serve as human shields. That Egypt could not give a damn about the lives of the Palestinian people. So what President Trump and this administration is being asked to do, along with Israel, again, it has been Israel's responsibility to feed the people within Gaza, not Hamas, which runs the piece of land. So that being said, I could talk about markets, but if this is going to get resolved, now is the time.
And it comes in the wake of the UN. Members are still here for a couple more days. It's not completely over just yet, but many of the bigwigs have left town. And, you know, you think about this, Brian, many UN member countries support Palestine as an individual state. That's tough.
Well, yeah, and this and hats off. I just want to agree with you, Dagan, on like the situation the Trump administration has been put in to try to navigate this. almost impossible situation. You got this 21-point deal, which I appreciate. One of the big, kind of the axle of this deal, though, is that these surrounding Arab Muslim countries have to be the ones who secure the peace in Gaza. They're the ones who are going to put troops on the ground. They're going to provide funding for whatever this government's going to be. So you ask yourself, they wouldn't take Palestinians during the conflict, but now they're going to walk in and provide a credible guarantee of security and a backup for this government. I don't see that happening. Also, an interesting provision in this, Hamas members who say they disavow violence get amnesty. And the ones who don't leave. How are you going to figure that out?
Yeah, say it.
How are you going to figure that out?
Right.
And if you're Benjamin Netanyahu sitting at the White House, that's exactly the question you're asking. Like, okay, so you're telling me the bad ones are going to leave and the good ones are going to stay? There are good ones who are going to stay, and you want me to get out of here and still guarantee to my people that they're safe? So that's not a problem with what the Trump administration is trying to do. It's just a problem with this situation in that part of the world, how it got there, and the neighbors in that territory who will do nothing credible to solve the problem, Jay.
Okay, let's put a pin in that one for just a second. And Lou, I want to come to you on China, because we've been talking about this TikTok deal that was announced, and President Xi Jinping keeping China involved in this. They have a stake, but control is going to come to the United States. It looks like all the security provisions and all those measures will be conducted here by Oracle. And as this was happening, I said to myself, he wants something because he's giving this, and now we know what he wants. He wants the U.S.
something
to
huge.
say
the little T in TikTok is going to go into U.S. control, and the big T in Taiwan is
Right.
going to go to China. I think this is dramatically overplaying his hand here. I mean, this is a huge pivot and shift. I mean, this is asking for a king's ransom in exchange for a tech company. And if you look at it from the tech standpoint alone, 63 to 65% of the world's most advanced chips are produced in Taiwan. Ceding control of Taiwan or eventual control of Taiwan to China by the president is a non-starter. I don't even see how this is even being contemplated. I mean, I guess you got to, in a negotiation, ask for the big thing and then negotiate away from that.
Well, we knew he was going to ask for something, so I'm sort of not surprised by this. And then the third piece of the puzzle is Russia, Ukraine, and you heard Vice President J.D. Vance there. There are many reasons that Russia should be backing down, but it seems like Vladimir Putin isn't.
Oh, no, he clearly is not, but he's being squeezed into a corner. It's always dangerous when you back a bear into a corner. Dangerous when you back anyone into a corner, but Putin in particular. And the reason I say that is his oil assets, and that's where he gets a third of his money that he then needs to fund this war. The oil assets are being squeezed. The Ukrainians are becoming more and more effective using drones to take out some of the oil-producing assets. There's some sabotage. You're also finding that they're not able to reinvest in exploration and find new wells. And eventually, wells run out of money. So I think even though he can keep this going for some period of time, he's got to be running the numbers. You know, my job as a stock analyst is to run the numbers, and I project out into the future. And when I see something that jumps out at me, I make note of it. Either I buy the stock, or I used to short. I don't do that anymore. I'm an optimist. But if I were analyzing the cash flow in Russia, I would not be an optimist.
Yeah. So many different things happening all on this one president's plate. It's pretty amazing as he's doing trade deals, negotiations, Brian, tariffs, Supreme Court case pending in that particular situation. You wonder how it's possible to manage all of this.
Well, and can I just point out, too, because you're right, like you've got these three issues, and the president's amazing. He can handle a lot of different things at the same time. But at the same time, I'm frustrated that because of weakness in the previous administration, he's having to spend a lot of time on Ukraine, Russia, Gaza, Israel, when I think the big issue here is China. And Xi Jinping coming and saying, I want you to oppose Taiwan independence. It's got huge commercial implications, but the military implications, the Taiwan Strait for shipping, for large containers, the first chain islands that are like a defensive barrier for Japan and the Philippines, all of that is wrapped up in this. And our president's got to divide his time between cleanup issues from Biden and then actual, like, going forward strategic issues that could be existence or non-existence for the free world. thank goodness President Trump is there to do it. But it is a very, very bad deal that America's negotiating all these things at the same time. And that's a failure of progressive, woke, asleep at the switch, somebody else at the switch government.
It's how we got here. And I just want to, Dagan, ask you on this Taiwan. I mean, the president can't give in to this. So the question would be, does the negotiation with China fall apart? Are they bluffing here? Are we going to see some art of a deal play out?
China's our adversary, and it needs to be treated as such. They're not our competitor at all. The one thing that I'll note is the investment by app that we talked about last week, and I brought it up at the time, but the potential investment by Apple into Intel, which has already received, well, the United States government owns 10% of Intel, but also investment by NVIDIA. This is the direction, and it's very slow going, but this is a security investment on behalf of NVIDIA and Apple to offset Taiwan, because their chips, NVIDIA's chips are manufactured in Taiwan. Apple's
There's rumors,
chips.
though, that Taiwan Semi is going to invest in Intel as well. So
Right.
They're denying it, obviously, until something happens.
But Taiwan Semiconductor is, as the name indicates, fully committed to Taiwan.
Right.
But with NVIDIA and Apple, which are based in the United States, this is an investment that secures chip production for them in the future.
I think what's complicated is China thinks in decades and centuries when they negotiate. The U.S. thinks in presidential elections and midterms. We're too nearsighted.
Or quarterly results every 12 weeks, which is why the president said, well, maybe the SEC ought to think about semi-annual.
Right.
Well, it took Taiwan Semiconductor 40 years to build that cluster.
Right.
40 years. So let's just be clear about the time frames we're talking about to replace it.
2 to 3 years to build a fab from scratch here.
But Dagan's right. It's critically important.
Well, we as a nation sat back and let Intel spiral down the toilet bowl over a period of 20 some odd years. We just watched it happen, knowing that it was in our national security interest that this fabricator, that this foundry be healthy. And it's not going out of business, but it's certainly
Well, they're vertically integrated, right? They were
unintended.
designing their own chips and making their own chips as opposed to outsourcing the production for other people that could innovate better, more nimble. It's the the law. Of
I
large
know the
numbers of
story.
companies, right? Right, but it's Intel. It had every opportunity to succeed. It was poor management. We didn't abandon it.
It
as
was.
A country.
No, but we did abandon it as a nation if we know that everybody in Silicon Valley they sit around and have for years talked about Intel being its health being in our national security interest.
Right, but
and what did they do? Nothing.
Well,
they sat back and let it collapse.
Well, I'd argue that there's other innovators that were spun out of Silicon Valley that have technology, chip technology that could put us at the forefront. Companies like Atomera, Mears Technology invented the fiber optics. So there's plenty of capital. I don't think it's a failure of the free markets. I think it's a failure of leadership in the free markets.
Well,
I think Intel
and also government, because Biden threw all this money at them with the CHIPS Act with no strategy.
And got nothing back for it, which was why Trump said,
it is a failure of both free markets and corporatism out of the government, that they knew that was the only fabricator and only foundry in the United States, in essence,
that's fair.
that we needed it to function and function well. And nobody did boo other than yap about it.